He's always sending me updates on anything and everything that anybody needs to know. So I will let
Gloria,
Vaughn speak for himself.
I thank you, Gloria. I did send the bio to the students and I think to the mentors. And I'll just reiterate just a bit since I thought you got it, Gloria, but you didn't. But
Nope.
Mr.
It's
Thomas,
okay because I know about it.
he's been in management and music consultant for over 30 years with experience in communication, social service, entertainment, and special events. He's president CEO of a sports foundation in New York City, and he's worked with many notable music icons such as Quincy Jones, Miles Davis, Herbie Hancock, Freddie Hubbard, the Crusaders, the Weather Report, Michael Jackson, Dexter Gordon, Gil Scott-Heron, Earth, Wind and Fire, Mandrill, Aretha Franklin, Kenny G, Phyllis Hyman, Dionne Warwick, George Duke, George Benson, and Matt Metheny. So we're just delighted. Oh, including the Heath brothers, Whitney Houston, and many, many others. So it's an absolute honor to have Vaughn with us today. He's going to talk to us about his days at Lincoln University and then his illustrious career.
Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for tuning in. And, you know, as you get older, your memory kind of slips. So there may be some things that I may leave out on purpose, but I'll try and stick. I'll try and stick to the truth and give it to you straight, no chaser. Let me first start out with how I got to Lincoln, because that's almost like a roadmap to my career in doing a lot of things that I ended up doing in life. After finishing high school, like many of us, I was waiting around for the NBA to call me because I thought I was a pretty good basketball player, but the NBA never called. So I had to figure out what I was going to do next. And just around that time that I thought I was going to end up going into the armed services, a good friend of mine, one of my best friends' older brother, who had gone to Lincoln and graduated from Lincoln earlier, was going back to Lincoln to get his transcripts because he was going to attend med school at Meharry. And he asked me to come along with him. So I had nothing to do that afternoon. So I rode down to Lincoln and I got on the campus, and it was like, I knew a lot of the people that were already on the campus going to Lincoln that I had no idea were going to Lincoln. So naturally that made it real easy for me to sign up and attend Lincoln. So I get on campus to sign up and get the rooms and so. And the person in front of me was none other than Leon Dash. Now
Wow.
Leon Dash and I, we go back. I mean, we were like, his cousins lived next door to us in the Bronx, and I knew Leon is probably my oldest friend because of that. We were like maybe 5-6 years old, and when we had a reunion a couple of years ago. And Leon came to the party and was saying, you know, man, you and I go back almost to 19. I said, stop right there, Leon. That's enough. But if any of y'all know Leon, you know, he can be pretty loud and bellicose. So we kept it to a minimum. Hi, Harold. How you doing, man? Anyway,
Hey, Harold.
Hey there.
We got to Lincoln, and I never experienced anything like that. First of all, they had all these men, all these brothers, and everyone was better than the other. And I mean, some of the shenanigans that went on there, I can't even begin to tell you, nor will I tell you, because I want to protect the guilty, you know. But some of them are on this call too. So some of this stuff was legendary, you know, it probably still is. But anyway, it was a real, how can I describe? It was a reunion, not a reunion, but more of a communion of brothers that had a wild side to them, but also had a very intellectual and very educational side to them. So you had that kind of mix. You had the crazy, you know, lunatic, almost crazy, but then you had the same guy in class that was getting A's and B's. So you had that kind of mix. And then, of course, many years later, many of these people went on to do great things. My interest in music and entertainment really began at Lincoln. And it's all, rest in peace, Randy Kane.
Mm-hmm.
Randy Kane was my roommate at Lincoln.
Oh,
wow. And Randy, as many of y'all may know, went on to become the founding member of the Delphonics. Mm-hmm. And so as his roommate, I would go into Philly with him and watch he and the boys rehearse. And it was like, man, these guys are really good. And Randy was like, I'm going to leave school, man. We're going to go out there and hit it. I'm going to, do this thing with the group. I said, Randy, man, you got one more year to go. Why are you going to leave school? Well, I wasn't real convincing enough because he left school. And I got to tell you, damn near 6 months later, they had a big, big, big record. Allah means I love you.
Mm-hmm.
But I can also take credit for some of their success because I became president of the varsity club at Lincoln. And one spring we had what we call the spring thing. And I was able to invite Randy and the Delphonics, the Intruders, and believe it or not, Kenny Gamble in the Romeos. Kenny Gamble of Philadelphia International was a lead singer in this group called Kenny Gamble and the Romeos.
Right.
And the funny thing about it, well, it wasn't funny at the time, but we didn't have the money to pay him. We didn't raise enough money to pay the groups.
I remember that.
And fortunately, I had two of my buddies from New York down with me. So they had my back. And fortunately, somebody told one of the professors that we were a little short on cash. And so they ponied up and we got out of there with our bodies and souls intact. So let's move on to graduating from Lincoln, not really knowing what I wanted to do. I had a degree in sociology and a minor in psychology, both of which played a big part in my survival in the music industry. But I went to work for an insurance company because the insurance company offered a management training program that exposed you to not only the sides of insurance, but they also trained you in the area of marketing and publicity. And so I chose the area of publicity and public relations because I know those were both marketable skills. And after being there about a year or two, I was interviewed by the Wall Street Journal about Blacks in corporations and getting into the corporate mainstream. So right after that article came out, I got a call from United Negro College Fund. And they wanted me to come on board as their publicist. So it's interesting enough because I went to the United Negro College Fund. About 6 months later, a new director came in to head up the United Negro College Fund, and rest in peace, it was nobody knew it was Vernon Jordan.
Wow.
It was Vernon Jordan. So
wow.
Unfortunately, we didn't get along, and Vernon ultimately fired me because I was getting into a real radical kind of behavior. I was wearing dashikis, and I had a big afro, and Vernon called me and said, "Man, that just doesn't fit in this kind of organization. Man. We out here begging these white folks for money, and you walking around like some radical, So I left the United Negro College Fund and went and started a consulting company. And one of my first clients was the Harlem Commonwealth Council up in Harlem. And interesting enough, I ran into and became a mentor to the Reverend Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton at that time was running around trying to set up this national youth movement, but he had no office or had no real facility to work out. So we set him up in this office in Harlem. And I actually trained Alfred for many months on how to do a press conference, how to handle a press. And I got to tell you, I saw Reverend Sharpton a couple of years ago, and the first thing he said was, "It's all your fault. You're to blame." So I said, "That's good. I don't want to stand near you because I might get shot." Okay, so we kept in touch. Now I got to also mention that during that time, I ran into a brother that someone had suggested I get in touch with, and he was a brother that was in high school and was on the verge of writing poetry, and just really finding his way in poetry. And it was none other than Gil Scott Heron. And Gil was walking around, and really trying to figure out how he fit into this whole thing. And I suggested to him that he might find his way among some real cool brothers by going to Lincoln University. And that's, of course, where Gil ended up and really started his real musical career, because a lot of the guys that came out on his band were from Lincoln. I know Professor Cornwell's son was one of them, and there was another brother, Eddie. I forgot Eddie's last name.
Eddie Knowles.
Eddie Knowles went on to become a chancellor at the school college up in upstate New York.
Not Rutgers.
Rensselaer, I think it was.
Rensselaer.
Yeah.
Rensselaer.
Yeah.
That's right,
Yeah.
Rensselaer.
Right. So now I'm working up in Harlem, and what happened was the word had gotten around that there was going to be this international music festival in Morocco. And there were several it was going to be a musical exchange between American musicians and Moroccan and African musicians. And on that bill was Max Roach, Dexter Gordon, Hubert Laws, and Odetta, and also this group called Mandrill. So I was part of the organizing committee on the state side, and we ended up going to Morocco, and there was a lot of things that happened over there on the way there. And when we got there, that was just, some things that were just kind of magical and unbelievable. One of the things that happened, of course, I got pretty close to the group because it was a long flight, and it turned out that the keyboard player went to school with my cousins. So there was some coffee, right. So one of the strangest things, there were several strange things that happened in Morocco, but the one that stands out the most is that Mandrill's equipment never arrived to the concert. Now you got to understand, they were building this concert up for almost 6 months. So, and it was going to be held in a bull ring. And here Mandrill was like the big group, the headliner, and they had no equipment. And this was a group that probably played close to 20, 30 instruments. And as word got around the country in Morocco, and people started talking about it, and by the time the group was ready to hit, miraculously, all this equipment, these kids went around and found equipment for the group to play on. And it wasn't the group's equipment, but it was equipment enough for them to perform. And it was a real experience. I mean, it was really experience. So Mandrill, I get involved with Mandrill, and we decide, we need to expand our reach. We're pretty much, big on the East Coast, so we need to move to California, LA. So we up and we moved to LA, and I get out there, and we weren't working, we were just rehearsing, getting ready to go out on tour. We went out on tour, I came back home, and I got a call. It was a call from a person I knew, and this is kind of how things kind of happen. This was a person who was managing Quincy at the time, who I knew from the Apollo Theater. When Mandrill played there, Mandrill broke all the records for having the most guest list, the largest guest list in the history of the Apollo, because you got to understand, there were seven to eight members of Mandrill, and these guys were inviting everybody off the streets just to come to the shows. And I mean, it was really ridiculous. And the director of the Apollo told me, he never wanted to see me again. But anyway, he ended up in California. He was handling Quincy Jones, and he asked me to, if I could come and work with Quincy. And I did that for a while. I traveled with him. Everywhere he went, I went, because Quincy had just recovered from an aneurysm that he had. So from that, we went and did a show at Madison Square Garden with Lou Rawls opening. And here we go again. The person that was in charge of publicity was at the show that I knew, because he was on the show with the Delphonics at Lincoln University, and he remembered me. And so Wynn said, look, man, we're looking to set up a publicity PR department out in LA. Are you interested? So fast forward, I went to set up that department. And I got to tell you, it was at CBS Records. And I got to tell you, at that time, we had the most, everybody on that label was just hot. I mean, Earth, Wind, and Fire. I mean, we had it from jazz to pop to soul. We had Philly International. It was so bad. We were so bad that the radio stations, their playlists just looked like a roster of CBS artists. I mean, Miles Davis, Freddie Hubbard. And these are all these guys that Spencer and many of us used to buddy up. We used to sit in there in the rooms listening to these guys playing and fantasizing. And here I was several years later hanging out with these guys, you know, and it was a real experience, a real education, because it really taught me, and I learned about, you know, professionalism. These guys, you know, were masters of their craft, and they were happy to share it, and it was always exploring. I mean, Herbie, it turns out he was an engineer major in college.
Mhm.
Wayne Shorter. I mean, Wayne was a med student. He was a pre-med student. So, you know, these were some very interesting people that I'm running into throughout and during early stages of my career. And so I went on, and after CBS, I moved over to MCA Records, where we had, one of my jobs was to, as director of sales and marketing, was to go out into the different distribution areas to find where we could move product, move records. And at that time, the music industry, and it still is to a degree, very segregated.
Yeah.
The only way you really could get into the music business is if, as a Black anyway, was to work for a Black music department. And it's pretty much still that way now, because with the, except for hip hop, which has now become the dominant music, it has also allowed for a lot of white people to get involved from the street team level, which they've organized, as well as running and handling budgets for a lot of these departments. So don't let anyone fool you. The music business is still very much segregated. As a matter of fact, they just had an article about 2 weeks ago about how Black women in country music are having a time getting their music distributed and displayed, and there's been quite a bit of controversy about that. Let me talk about the music business. Was fun. You know, you had expense account, you traveled, you met cool people, some not so cool. But I think one of the things that I learned and was told early on is that when you leave the business, you may have very few friends. You'll have a lot of memories, but not many friends that you remember. Although I kept in touch and still keep in touch with some people. Once you get into the music business, it's part of your, it's hard for you to let it go. You know, you still feel involved or get involved in some capacity or some level. But anyway, after I left the music business, I ended up working and moving to Orlando, because I was working with Dennis Scott was trying to start up a record label. So I went down there and helped him get that started. It didn't last very long. And so I went back up to New York, and I ran into a brother that was that I helped start an organization called the Sports Foundation, which was a nonprofit youth development sports driven organization. And he said, "Man, look, I'm retiring, I'm leaving, and I'm giving you the keys." so here I go. And running this nonprofit agency out of the South Bronx, which was not very far from where I was born and was raised up until I was 12 years old. It was interesting to see that not much had changed, but it was a good experience because I learned that whole world of begging, because part of your job is to raise money and to do fundraising. So, and also to learn how to write grants and how to make presentations. So from that standpoint, it was a life learning experience. So from the Sports Foundation, I got married again, and I moved to Atlanta because my son and his family were down here, and we said, well, you know, New York, we keep running into each other and it's not much. So we packed up and moved to Atlanta. And I've been sort of like semi-retired, more retired than not. But the music keeps calling me and keeps drawing me. And now I'm involved in a company called Vision One Media, which is a full service, one-stop production, video. We can do videos, we can record, we have management, we can make videos, we have a sound stage. So I've been brought on as an associate, and it's very pleasant because I have my own hours and I can pretty much do a lot of what I need to do at home because of, if you have contacts and resources, you don't need to be in the office. So that's pretty much my story. It's been a good and learning journey, but it also leads me to believe that some things you're destined for, because a lot of things that happened in my career was really just by accident almost. Even when I left the business and running the sports foundation, some of our advisory members was Earl of Pearl Monroe, Dean Meminger. Our sponsors were the New York Yankees, and the New York Knicks. So this is that was a very rewarding experience, from music to working nonprofit and working in the community. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I may have left out some things, but I have a good excuse because I'm a senior citizen, and I just got my second shot. So I might be leaving out some things, probably a lot of things that I don't want to bring up. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That's an incredible story. Thank you so much.
If anybody has any questions.
I just want to ask you one simple question. Do you have any musical ability?
No.
Wow.
I attempted to play the piano, and the teacher told my mother that don't waste her money, And so I didn't do that. But a good ear always goes a long way.
Yes.
Hey, Vaughn, it's Dwight.
Hey, yo, Dwight, what's happening, man?
Yeah, man.
Hey, bro.
Hey, let me tell you guys about Vaughn.
Whoa.
Uh-oh.
First of all, he was a senior when I was a freshman.
Oh.
And I played basketball. He loved basketball. I remember that. But I'm glad you mentioned Randy, because I remember, we used to make runs to see women at Howard. And I remember going down to Howard, catching a ride with you and Randy. I don't know if you remember that. And the last time I saw you was in New York when you were with Earl and Dean Meminger at that event at one of the hosts for Lincoln University. Remember you brought?
Oh yeah, Earl, that's right. Yeah. The 150th anniversary.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So Vaughn was a cool guy.
Here we go.
Hey, Vaughn, can you hear me?
Yes.
Vaughn, this is Ron Cole, class of '68. You don't remember me, do you?
Not really, but
we played basketball, we played baseball together.
Is that right?
It's Ron Cole, right? Ron Cole.
Was that any good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ron, you got a rabble name? Because we don't know real names.
What?
You got a rabble name?
Ron didn't have a rabble.
Muley?
Oh, Muley.
Oh, Muley.
Oh,
God.
Okay, now I remember Muley.
How you doing, Vaughn?
I'm doing good, brother. How you doing, man? Muley.
I'm gonna tell you something that's probably gonna make your head swell.
Oh, come on now.
You were so cool, right? When you were with Lincoln, that when I was trying to think of a name for my son, I came up with Vaughn.
Get out of here.
Exactly. I was thinking about you.
Putting that pressure on that boy like that, man.
Well, yeah, I know. But anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to chime in. I saw Carol's post on Facebook that you guys were Zooming. So I hadn't seen you since I left ingloriously in '66.
Wow.
But things have been good.
Good for you. You still in Philly?
Yeah, right outside of Philly.
Okay.
I'm in touch with everybody from Philly. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
Ron is an attorney. Are you still practicing, Ron?
I'm in my office right now as we speak. Trying to get at it.
Trying to get at it. Okay.
Well, make sure you connect with Carol and Dwight Murph. That goes for you too, so I can send you all a check.
All right.
for saying those nice things.
Hey, wait a
Carol,
minute. I don't get a check.
I need to inbox you, Carol, also.
Okay.
No, I don't have to send it to you, Flo. I'll see you in person. I'll see you in person.
I sent it to your husband, but he never responded. So anyway.
There's a question for you, Ron. They want to know, where are you outside of Philly?
I'm like 1 block from Philadelphia. I'm in Montgomery County, in a place called Melrose Park, right
Okay.
near Cheltenham and
Okay.
Broadston.
Okay.
Oh, we know
Is
who
it,
you
is
are.
it true that y'all rigged the election in Philly?
Heck
Of
yeah,
course.
we won, didn't we?
Listen, we did that on purpose. We were paving the way for you guys.
Well, I know you involved, Gloria. I know you involved.
I wonder if we could hear from some of our students, questions or comments.
I have a question.
Okay,
Uh-oh.
Anissa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anissa Barber. I double major in human services and sociology. I'm a graduating senior, so I'm the class of 2021. Well, first I want to thank Mr. Thomas for just coming to the class to speak with us today. I really enjoyed your stories. This question is not directly towards you. It's just a question for everyone, all of the alums. I know most of the students here were like seniors. Me personally, I'm having a little bit of trouble with like adjusting to like graduate life. Like I know like after I graduate, the real life start, like I have to get a job or go to grad school. So my question is like, when you were in my shoes, what helped you? Like, what gave you that push to do what you had to do? Like, what told you, like, oh, go to grad school or go to law school or go get that job? Because I'm feeling a little stuck. Like, I'm so overwhelmed with trying to finish all my classes, keep my GPA up. I've been doing this so far. I'm doing good, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of pressure on me right now because I know after I graduate, it's like I have to put my big girl shoes on, my big girl drawers. Like it's getting too real for me. So I need some advice from the Lincoln alum.
Let's
Well,
let Vaughn,
first thing
let's
you do-
let Vaughn answer first, maybe.
Probably you need a little luck, but maybe you also need to talk to some of your mentors or some of your older graduates to give you some advice on to what direction you might want to consider. And then also, continue to work hard and also to network as much as you can so that you can meet people that can maybe be of help and of service to you.
Can I chime in on that
Carol,
one too?
if I could just make one comment. Anissa, that's a very good question. And it's always a very difficult time, especially for seniors. I'm going to be speaking next week. And that's part of my story about how I went from Lincoln to the business world. So I'm going to ask you to tune in next week also, rather than preempt and give you my story now. But I definitely like that question and want you to keep that in mind because I have an interesting story to tell also.
Okay, let me make a suggestion, young lady. You've got Lynetta Lee, who is a very good administrator and counselor, and you should be using some of her services because she's got connections. Are you Philly based?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
You are Philly based. You have an alumni association here in Philadelphia, of which I'm a member, and we will definitely be also working with you to help you make your next steps. What's your major?
I double major in human services and sociology.
What do you want to do with it?
I want to become a marriage and family counselor.
Okay.
So my plans after graduation are to go to grad school to get my license so I can start practicing.
Do you know what school offers the best and what you want, or have you researched that yet?
I'm in the process of researching it now with my advisor, my academic advisor.
Okay. Once you know which school you want to go to and you start applying to those schools, then you start finding out about the community or the area in which those schools are located so that you can have some idea as to what you're looking at in terms of living conditions and opportunities and options in that regard. And also find out what kind of financial assistance you might be able to get, because what you're doing is a very specialized field. Okay. So that's a good way to start. And also, you're a Lincolnian, sweetie. You're a Lincoln Lioness. There's nothing impossible to us. We can do anything. We move mountains. This is why we've been here for 160 some odd years. So just take all that and just understand that you've been walking across hallowed grounds for 4 years. And now it's time to sort of like make sure all those spirits are rolling through you, because we're there. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
May I
You're
chime
welcome.
in? Hi, this is Dawn. I'm not showing my face today. So I just want to say a few things and I'll keep it short. One is to breathe. This is normal. Every senior goes through this. It's kind of like that transitional period, so you're not alone. There's nothing abnormal about what you're going through. So just take a deep breath and enjoy this time up until your commencement. Okay, just take it one day at a time. The other piece is it's serious, but it's really not that serious. Again, just breathe. What worked for me is I had my village, and my village were my Lincoln family. I was very fortunate to go to a high school in, I grew up in New York, where we still are very close, and a lot of people went off to college, so we followed the same paths. But throughout my life and my career, I've always had a village that I could reach out to and get the support I need. And to Gloria's point, you're a Lincoln. When you leave there, you walk into a whole Lincoln alumni family. And so you're not alone, and you should never feel alone. And if you're looking for direct mentorship, send your, we are working on something with the Alumni Association to match up seniors and students with alumni to help you through your path. So please give your information to Carol or Dr. Button and we can work on that. But just really, take a deep breath. It feels like a lot. And when you're on the other side of it,
Great advice. And I would also say, keep your options wide open. I don't know if you've met Ralph Simpson in the career office, but every day, even I am getting notices about internships, about incredible jobs, about grad schools. And when I was coming through Lincoln, we had one man, Mr. Sam Grant, and I think he may have given us 1 or 2 referrals during the year, but now I see them coming through 5 and 10 a day. And one of the things you can do, just go through interviews. It helps you become a better interviewee. Mm-hmm. So that when you narrow it down to the 3 or 4 opportunities you'd like to pursue, you're really ready. And you're halfway there. You're asking the right questions. There's so many students who don't ask. They blow an opportunity to get information that you're asking for. And you've got this is a great panel here to throw out that question.
Right.
Can I say something?
I might add, Carol, that that's another way of entry into the music business as a intern. Mm-hmm. Although many of us, can't afford to work for free, but if you can afford it and work, that's one of the entry ways of getting into the music business, serving as an intern.
I just want, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I want to say, Vaughn mentioned luck, and it reminded me that someone told me once, luck is the intersection of preparation and opportunity. Mm. So you're now in a phase of preparation, and the opportunities will come. And the hardest part are the choices that you're going to make. And but in this preparation mode, you'll be processing what it is that you aspire to, what it is you want to do, what it is that other people expect you to do. So anyway, keep in mind that luck is preparation crossing opportunity, and the opportunities will appear.
But other questions from students?
Question for Vaughn.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Who had a question for Vaughn?
I did. I was waiting to see if a student was going to ask the question first, though.
Students, here's your chance. Here's your chance, student. Wait a minute. Well, let me see if we get a student. Okay, Gloria, no student. Go ahead.
BT, you mentioned several times about grants and getting grants and things like that. And very few of our colleges know how serious and important it is to know about being able to get underwriting for different programs and opportunities. Would you say that it would be a good thing to have some kind of class or department that specifically deals with how to put those kinds of things together?
Absolutely.
Because it seems to me that you dealt.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the means of how to get them and where to get them from. You know, there's many federal grants, there's many state and local grants that
Exactly.
that folks, if you're not in the loop, you just don't know about. But also there are a lot of requirements that you have to have too. Like you have to, if you're a nonprofit, you have to 5013C, which means you're tax exempt, and other rules and regulations that you have to abide by. You know, so I would suggest it strongly if you have people that could do that to teach and learn how to write grants. So it's just a real good skill to have.
Well, there are actually some schools that teach that. I think it would be good to add that to Lincoln University, either as a curriculum or an extracurricular program or something that can be taught as a specialty. But just listening, I heard you mention grants about 4 different times under 4 different circumstances. And I mean, having worked in program planning and development myself, I know that is not something that you can just walk in, get, and walk back out. It's not an easy walk.
Right.
That is a really
it's not.
question. And I just want to chime in here that our Office of Sponsored Research and Grants does do workshops for faculty. And I think faculty ought to jump in and bring students to those workshops. And I'll certainly make that recommendation. We don't have a course per se for students, but there's no reason they can't join these extra events.
There's the Grantsmanship Center in New York, and they would actually be very happy to come out to Lincoln and teach that. And that's where I got my certification from, but that's a great program.
Yeah.
And
isn't there
they do a
also
lot of
up at LaSalle University? I think they have a whole, well, it's nonprofit based, but it still has a lot of that kind of information. And more of that really, I mean, my city, Chester, you probably have all heard how, what miserable position it's in. Some of this is really a lack of really understanding about things like grants and not knowing how to do it. So it's really important. Thanks, Gloria, for pushing that.
You're welcome.
You know, one of the things I failed to mention, I'm going back to the Mandrill days, because one of the highlights of my career with Mandrill was when we performed at Lincoln University. And I have a special, I forgot what year, but I remember us leaving from Philly with a bus full of Lincoln guys. Harold Freeman, I think you were on that bus.
Yeah, I was there.
and it was, I think the bus ride was more fun than the concert, because what happened was we lost, somebody stole the trumpet player's trumpet, and I think there was something else stolen that night. So if anybody comes across, that's still at Lincoln and comes across a trumpet or any other kind of percussion, please return it.
How many years ago was that, Vaughn?
40.
Oh, geez.
More than that, 40.
It was more than that.
It was way more than 40.
No, wait a minute, VG. Let me think.
No,
it was 40.
No.
Oh, no.
We celebrated our 55 years ago.
55. Let me
From Mandrill?
We performed, it was with the Commodores.
Right. But one thing,
we performed in the big building, the new, which was new then, but the Manny Rivera. But Harold, I think you and
that was in the early 70s. The 73 is when I started there, so it was around that time, because I remember that was the homecoming show, Mandrill and the Commodores, and so that was the early 70s.
Okay, I know. Okay.
Well, let me ask something to the young lady. Couple different things. Number one, it's natural to have fears going and getting out to the real world. And another fear that you have is coming from a small school like university. How are you going to make it in the real world? But what you find is once you get in there, you probably are more well prepared than most of the people who went to majority schools. I went to Columbia, I went to Temple, and I knew more than they did. One other thing is, plan to do what you enjoy doing and what you do well. Build on your strengths. So those would be my suggestions. Just be ready and take and use your Lincoln alum. I still talk to people from Lincoln 55 years later every day. So
I just spoke to you this morning, Harold.
This morning, sure. So you got a whole village supporting you.
He does.
Join the alumni association.
Yeah.
So what I hear is which they say in jobs is social network, which Vaughn talked about. I guess Harold, you're talking about. That's very important. But also, I want to say this, that you have to look at the times we're living in. When the 60s, it was blackness and they were looking for us, etc. Today we got the internet, you have LinkedIn. So right now you have to adjust to the times. So that's what you need to do. Social network, because let me tell you something. Me being naive is not all about merit. That's a false sense of thinking. The A person doesn't always, the A or the B. So it's about a lot of it's social networking, and that concentrate on that. Who you know is very important.
Actually, I think she's going to do quite well because she's asking the right people the right questions.
That's right.
So that's going to be great. VT, if there was anything you could have done over again while you were at Lincoln, what would it have been?
Study.
Study.
Study. He makes my point.
Stayed another year.
Huh?
Stayed another year.
Hey, but let me say this. This is a good example. Vaughn has a personality. Look how he achieved things was through his personality more than his studying. Think about it.
It'll help you in many ways.
It helps, right? It does. Your personality helps a lot. Carol's personality, Harold's personality, it helps. That's very important.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have taken that religion course if that guy gave me a D in. Lowered my average. I probably wouldn't take that course again.
Dr. Murray?
Dr. Murray, man. I was acing it all the way through to the final. And the person I laughed at most got the A. Bennett Sexton. Brother Bennett.
I'd like to ask if there was a debating team in your era.
No, but there was wasn't there an oratory team? Wyatt was a part of an oratory team.
We debated everywhere.
What was that?
Were you sleeping there?
I think in the early 60s, there was a debating team.
There was an oratory team, wasn't it?
No. And in the later 60s, the students were actually
when I was there.
all kinds of
we just got
So Wyatt was on some oratory. Maybe.
No, there was no debating team.
No, it wasn't.
The debating team was all the rabble groups we used to have.
There was no debating team.
Outside the refectory, right?
Or at the whisk table.
No, outside Rendell.
Yeah.
I just have a question, Mr. Vaughn. You said that you weren't in the choir, is that right?
No, Spencer was.
Okay.
I was.
Okay. So see, but what I'm hearing is a lot of personality from all of you. And so what I tell my students in the choir is that by being in an ensemble or a Greek org or something, that's where you're going to get that opportunity to start being who you are and feeling comfortable about it. I mean, when those students have to stand up in front of people, it's so important. And see, I'm a pastor's daughter, and so my dad had us, all six of us. We were always out there, right? So I thank him very much for that opportunity. But I love to hear what you were saying. I am just always talking to my students in the choir about that you're a visual art and you never know who's going to be looking at you. And after we're done singing, that you go and you shake somebody's hand. I mean, of course, now it's COVID's done, but, and you never know who you're going to connect with. And we even practice. I know this really sounds probably kind of strange, but I have my section leaders actually practice with my students. Hello, my name is so-and-so, just so they can get used to it, just to get out there and start networking.
How many's in the choir?
Well, normally we have about 60 in the choir.
Oh.
Right now we have 38 with COVID, and it's a little bit different. We have to have rehearsal like this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We
Can
had
I
about
just,
30.
Vaughn, you know what you forgot to mention?
What's that?
The fact that when you were at Lincoln, you graduated in 66. That was the year after the first 16 co-eds were brought onto the campus. And you made it sound so nice and everything, but let's tell the truth. You guys were a bunch of wild childs. There was no light on the campus. There were no sidewalks. Half of the time you were down in the Ville and doing anything and everything. And Lincoln was a great incubator for the kind of genius that all of you guys were.
I was usually in the library. I didn't hang out.
Don't even try it. Hopefully, because everybody's trying to make it look as if it was all this wonderful sweetness and light. Tell the truth.
Yeah, well, that's what made Lincoln so unique and special.
Hey, Spencer, tell them where you lived your 4 years on campus.
Who, me?
Uh-huh.
I lived all over. I lived in Crescent the last.
Your freshman year, where were you?
McCrary.
Where everybody else was.
Yeah.
McCrary. You in McCrary?
Yeah.
Okay.
I came mid-semester.
Mm-hmm.
So I came in 61.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I really came in 62, January 62, because I was a second semester freshman. But I graduated in 65 because I did my last 2 years, I carried heavy loads and I went to Cheney and did 12 hours during the summer.
Wow.
So that I could graduate with the class of 65 rather than 66, because you can see the outcomes of the class of 66.
Oh, come on.
The exceptional outcomes of the class of 65.
That is cold-blooded.
That's not nice.
That is cold.
But
But you were with Bill Wallace then, right, Spencer?
Mm-hmm.
Bill Wallace and Don Bogle?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jay Johnson?
Yes. And Robert Archie was my roommate.
Oh my God.
And my line brother.
So you were okay. So and you got the nerves to be cracking on the class of 66?
Yes, indeed.
What's your last name, Spencer?
Huh?
What's your last name? Wiles?
Wiles.
Wiles.
Yeah, I remember you.
I was Sir Wiles to
yeah. You're left-handed, right? Are you left-handed?
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. Yeah, you too, Vaughn, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember all you left-handers.
Yeah.
Wow.
we
still doing it.
Because we must have played ball. That's why I remember that you left-handed. See?
Okay.
Because you couldn't go to your right.
Oh
no.
Hey, Spence, we didn't need to. We didn't need to. We didn't need to.
That was Lincoln preparation for the real world.
Exactly.
There you go.
Very true. That's very true.
It was.
There you go.
That you needed to be able to deal with what you were going to be up against as a Black man in the world of work.
Right. You also develop thick skin.
That's right.
You had to have thick skin because
that's right. And you learn the ability to laugh at yourself while others did as well.
I have a student. I'd like to ask 2 questions at this point, if I may. One has to do with the tradition of inviting prominent people, famous people at the Mary Brown Dowd Chapel. So I was wondering if you remember any particular people that really impressed you. But the other question
Are you
is
kidding?
even more important. And that is, I have a student writing about the tradition of activism at Lincoln. And can you give us any anecdotes about maybe a demonstration you were involved in, or any civil rights?
I remember one night we were it was late, like 9 or 10 o'clock, time where you were either in your room studying or ready for bed. And someone came running saying, go down to the, what was the auditorium down there?
Spencer, you just froze. Mhm.
What was the auditorium down there? The church.
Yeah,
The chapel. The chapel.
Come down to Lincoln
Straight out
Chapel.
Yeah.
Malcolm X is there.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And we all went down the chapel, and Malcolm X was there speaking. And he was still a member of the Nation of Islam.
Yeah.
And he
Nation of
spoke,
Islam.
yeah,
I
and he
missed that,
spoke very fervently
What year
about,
was that? What year was that?
that had to be like 64,
Right, okay.
65.
Hey, Spencer, did he have security with him? You remember?
He had Nation of Islam with him.
The
Yeah.
fruit. He had the fruit.
Yeah, FOI. FOI.
The fruit of Islam, yeah.
And a pink Cadillac.
But we
Excuse me?
all drank the juice. Everybody who were like mesmerized with Malcolm.
Yes.
He was like,
You could hear a pin
Yeah.
drop.
you know,
And I think a Lincoln graduate was one of his advisors or confidants, I think. You read about it. Yeah. A Lincoln person was part of his entourage.
He lived in my neighborhood. I used to see him all the time.
And East Elmhurst, yeah.
East Elmhurst, yeah. He used to. I used to see him in the candy store, and then when they firebombed his house, everybody that didn't know that he lived there knew then. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he had a profound influence on most of us.
And then you guys had Spencer. Y'all had Jesse Jackson come up and talk one time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we had him. He was a fraternity. He's a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. We had him for one of our Founders Day.
He also did a
He was a
commencement.
keynote speaker.
He also spoke, yeah, commencement of 65.
Yeah, 69.
69.
69.
It was
69.
the year Maxine graduated.
Yeah, it was my class.
Yeah,
It was 69. Also, if you want to know about activism, in the summer of 66, you know, Lincoln had a lot of African students.
Yeah.
And in the summer of 66, I think I was up there. One of the African students chartered a bus to the United Nations to protest Ian Smith's Rhodesia regime. And we rode up there on a bus with signs protesting Ian Smith.
Ian Smith.
Ian Smith, right.
That was you, me, Sam Anderson. And we got up there. We were the only ones there, and it was freezing cold. We were the only ones standing out there with our signs, and nobody but us.
Yeah, so that's some of the activism, the connection with Africa. And of course, I think Mama
Can I
Barack,
also mention something?
Oh, I remember Gil.
Imamo, yeah.
Barack.
Don't forget, Stokely Carmichael, aka Kwame Ture, was a regular visitor to Dr. Charles V. Hamilton because of his affiliation with SNCC. And the CIA used to try to infiltrate Lincoln because of all the African students who were related to dignitaries in Africa. And we kept running them off the campus. So Lincoln was a hot spot because they knew we were a little hotbed of Black power.
You know, one thing people forget is that James Farmer came on campus and taught a course.
Yeah.
Yes.
We even had Sidney Poitier one year.
Yeah.
Sidney Poitier was, and the Burnside brothers were his.
Yeah, he was related to the Burnside brothers in the Bahamas. And Muhammad Ali, I remember Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
When was that? When was that, Pablo?
He's the one who stopped me from eating pork.
Oh, Muhammad, well,
60,
you know, I don't remember exactly.
66 or
Yeah,
67.
probably. I remember
Carol,
him.
that was 66 or 67.
The other thing.
Because
The
Carol, he
minister,
mentioned in the journal that I sent you. What'd you say?
Carol,
In the journal. Okay, right.
I believe that's one of the things he writes about was Muhammad Ali. I think. I could be remembering.
Okay.
Also, don't forget Ruby D came to the campus and Carmen de Lavalade came
The same
to the
time?
campus.
Did they come at the same time, Bill?
Yeah.
They were there together.
Okay.
Yeah.
The last poets were there. That
Well, I
was
wonder how that
after Lincoln, Vaughn and you guys were gone. Yeah.
Yeah, we were,
The last poets, well, yeah, that was after the
Is
last
that right?
poets came. They were the ones who influenced Gil. They
Yeah.
had a big influence on him.
Gil
when he
led,
saw it.
led some kind of rally while he was up there because I ran into the Halston brothers, who were the sons of the Halston, who was the interim president at the time.
Yeah.
And they told me that Gil, as soon as I mentioned Gil's name, they just went into a frenzy. Said, man, that brother gave him so much trouble with all this rallies and stuff. And when the Klan came up there or something, or was talking about coming up there, Gil was ready to go out there and lead the charge. You know,
don't you remember, VT, when Dr. Hamilton, Sam Anderson, and some of the other Lincoln brothers had guns standing around the perimeter of the campus waiting for the KKK?
Yeah.
We got pictures of that in the yearbook, remember?
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. And don't forget, Langston Hughes came, and so did Adam Clayton Powell Jr.
Yeah, and who can forget?
Well, then you got to add Roscoe Lee Brown came as well.
Well, also Ron
Brown
Milner.
had the record for in Fed relays for the 440. Is that right, Harold?
Yes.
Yeah, it's right. You're right. But
and let us not forget Donald Lambright.
Yeah.
Poor Don.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that.
Well, if you remember, Cecil Moore spoke. He was the attorney who desegregated, who broke the Girard College case. I think we were waiting for him. He was drunk when he came, but he cleared up.
More.
He cleared up. And he had an incredible speech after that. Yeah.
Is that right?
He used to live around the corner from Maxine Stewart.
Okay.
But we have to acknowledge that a lot of students were also a lot of students were also involved in protests and demonstrations in the surrounding area.
Yeah.
Went down to Media, Pennsylvania, Chester, in Delaware. Sam and some other folks will organize us, and some evenings we go down there and we'll be holding protest marches and demonstrations, singing and things of that sort. So it wasn't just people coming to campus; they inspired us, but we also left campus and were part of different demonstrations and rallies around the area.
Right.
And I think the chemistry professor
Johnson,
who helped organize some of that.
WTM Johnson.
Johnson.
WTM Johnson.
WTM Johnson. From DuPont.
He was head of the NAACP in County.
Yeah.
And Rob, do you remember that or maybe Dwight would remember this, there was an ongoing Klan rally in Maryland right across the border.
Rising Sun.
That's where Maxine and I got caught by the Klan. Maxine, myself, Wanyandi, Nyawanga, Missouri. We got caught by the Klan because Maxine wanted to go to an NAACP prayer vigil to counteract the Klan, and ended up almost getting us killed as a result of that.
Maxine was awesome.
Yep, that's my girl, my best buddy. But also Julian, don't forget Julian Vaughn.
Yes.
Yes.
When Julian found out that I graduated from Lincoln, we became lifelong friends because Julian's dad, of course, I didn't realize at the time that his dad had been the president of Lincoln, but when we started talking at a TV production, found out that I went to Lincoln, and from that point on, we were friends for years.
Yeah.
God knows. And I only have one picture of us together after all that time.
Yeah. None of us had cameras much in those days.
No.
Yeah.
We have a ton of people. I mean, but Lincoln University was where Stokely first came to enunciate Black Power. We at Mary Dodd Brown Chapel.
Yeah.
Stokely Carmichael enunciated, and I can almost tell you the date. It was in October of 1966.
And there
Stokely
were
said,
incredible articles in the Lincolniana. Letters to the editor, including on articles about all of that I can remember being just really excited about.
I never saw this. I guess I was too busy living it. But the other thing that I remember too, we had a very large, prominent African class, a body of classmates. Tom Mboya's brother, P.D. Ndiaye. Tom Mboya was the Secretary of Economics for Kenya. And Mboya was instrumental in bringing a lot of the students from Africa to Lincoln to get an education to take it back to Africa. And half of them still walking around here like they never knew that they left, that they lived there. So, I mean, Lincoln was like the go-to place for African refugees.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it was Dr. Davies that had the Lincoln Center.
Right.
That brought
They came from a lot of former colonized territories. They came from Mozambique, Angola, was now Zimbabwe, Rhodesia at that time, South Africa.
I remember that many of them would come.
Go ahead, Vaughn. They couldn't speak
No,
English.
I was saying I remember that many of them would come over here and couldn't even speak English. You know, only had the clothes on their back.
Stevens in the African Center.
Right, Dr. Stevens.
Yeah.
No, that was also Alice Grant, Mr. Grant's wife.
Yes, there was.
Because I was part of the reception committee for those African students. And Alice Grant would always have some kind of reception and intake to sort of like help them learn about how Lincoln worked and how to meet the students and everything. So, I mean, we were the hub.
Also,
we were the only black college that had its own African museum.
Also,
nobody else had one when we started out.
Also, Professor Button, you talking about the activism. It was believed that we even had FBI agents on campus.
They were all over the place. They were always trying to infiltrate.
So, particularly during my time. So, you know, that was the times. They thought we were going to do something, but we were innocent.
Well, we weren't. We were conspiring like crazy. Dr. Hamilton was having a meeting at night.
You might have been innocent. But you know, they framed one of our classmates.
Somebody from SNCC. Remember when the Hamilton report, where Chuck was legal counsel for SNCC and would go down to Mississippi to get everybody out, and then we would be sitting in the window of his classroom waiting for the Hamilton report to tell us what was going on.
And yes, and let me tell you what I'm doing right now. Some of the things, after you guys left, there was a student, he was a class of 1970. I'm talking with some people at Princeton right now. They're doing a story on him. His name is Harlan Bruce. He was in the Trenton riots. He was shot in the back. He was a Lincoln student.
Oh yeah.
And you know, and just when I was talking with the people about him, just think, you know, like where I teach in New York, if somebody dies, they got counseling and everything. They didn't have that for us.
Right.
They didn't have, you know, somebody died, oh, next, so what, you know, just keep on going. But there was a lot of trauma that we had to go through as young Black people at that time. And if we reflect upon it, we'll know, because we know about the character, a lot of stress, isolation. So it was some interesting and rough times.
I didn't feel any stressed, Dwight. I mean, I was having a great time.
Well, maybe you didn't, but I'm sure there were others. Some people snapped out. You know, we used the term snapped out, etc. So it was, and people died, and it meant a lot to us. You know, you talk about Donald Lambright. You know what he went through. So a lot of people did go crazy because of racism.
Yes.
So and all of us, and the other thing that's interesting is that a lot of us were from inner cities, Philadelphia, New York, Pittsburgh. So we all had that in common, that Black experience in common, and that also was important.
Well, I want to thank Vaughn for being with us today. It was a wonderful, exciting presentation. We concluded 6:15. I know our students are dropping off. But do come back next Thursday And where's Greg? Are you still on, Greg? Greg Miller will be with us with his story. And thank you all so much. Dr. Button, do you have any closing remarks or instructions?
Well, I want to encourage the students to move quickly on their research and be ready with the draft in 2 weeks.
Okay.
All right.
I'm so glad we didn't have to research ourselves.
Closing
My God.
remarks.
Dropped off when they had to
Yeah,
send.
they dropped off before that. We'll get a memo to them.
Vaughn, I'm so glad.
Hey, Spence.
Thank you,
Hey,
everyone. It
Spence,
was
don't call me, man, okay?
wonderful.
Don't call me. Yeah?
Thank you all so very,
Until
very
next week.
much. It was
Thank
great.
you.
All right.
Next week.
Thanks a
All
lot.
Y'all
right.
take
You're
care.
welcome. You're
Great
All
to
welcome.
right,
see so
everybody.
many of you.
Bye,
Take care.
everybody.
Be
Take
well, be
care.
safe.
Bye-bye.